have a moment of Elizabeth Warren, Democratic senator, kind of shifting the conversation about the midterms and trying to give more credit to Joe Biden in the way that the midterms went. Because what was interesting, and then I'll show you this clip, in the way this all played out was in the lead up to the midterms, a lot of people were saying that the Democratic Party was going to get trounced because Joe Biden, for many reasons, but one of the reasons they would cite is because Joe Biden's poll numbers are bad. And so then you expected if the Democratic Party did indeed do poorly in the midterms, a lot of people would have pointed the finger at Joe Biden. But then once the Democratic Party did way better than expected, no one pointed the finger in a positive way at Joe Biden. It was kind of interesting, which I understand why. I think a lot of people were thinking it's not because, but despite Joe Biden's poll numbers and him as the leader of the Democratic Party. But Elizabeth Warren wants to change up the conversation a little bit, as you'll see here.
The voters seem to perhaps not be happy with Democratic governance, but there was just no way they were going to go to Trump candidates. I think that's pretty clear. Do you have a concern that Democrats can't win if they're running against, say, normal Republicans, kind of like Chris Sununu or Mike DeWine, people like that?
No, I do not have such a concern. In fact, look, Donald Trump, with his preening and his selection of truly awful candidates, didn't do his party any favors. But this victory belongs to Joe Biden. It belongs to Joe Biden and the Democrats who got out there and fought for working people. The things we did were important and popular. Remember, right after Joe Biden was sworn in, all of the economists and the pundits in his ear who were saying, go slow, go small, Joe Biden didn't listen to them. And in fact, he went big. He went big on vaccinations. He went big on testing, but he also went big on helping people who were still unemployed, on setting America's working families up so they could manage the choppy waters in the economy following the pandemic. And then with the Inflation Reduction Act, we delivered again and delivered big. You know, $35 cap on insulin. There'll be a cap of $2,000 on what seniors spend on prescription drugs. We're cutting the cost of utilities, cutting the cost of insurance payments, and forcing giant corporations that have been paying nothing to pay a 15% minimum corporate tax. Every one of those things is popular. The Republicans, every single one of them, voted against every provision I just described. The president's leadership put...
Yes, so she really nicely highlights a lot of the political and policy wins that Joe Biden led in the accomplishing of. And so I think that should be the response from the Democratic Party. Now, I'm not a Democratic Party person. I am a political commentator. So I get to say that no, it really was other factors that played a bigger role in the midterms. I bet the political victories helped, but I don't think they were the reason why, because as you saw, and as Chuck Todd was trying to highlight, more regular, moderate Republicans did perfectly fine. It was the more wacky ones that didn't do so well. And so that kind of stands against the argument of it was the good policies purely that led to the victory, but that had to play a role, because when you look at a radical part of the Republican Party and you turn and you see the Democratic Party doing some stuff, then you might be more likely to go out to vote for them. But I think the Democratic Party should center that in every single one of these conversations, because that puts the positive that they're doing at the forefront of the discussion instead of just the negative that the Republican Party is. So you can say the threat that they pose to democracy is a reason to go out to vote, but not just out of fear do you have to vote. You also should vote because you're excited about the fact that we did all of these things. And as we discussed, Joe Biden and the Democratic Party really did accomplish, especially within the political context that we're in now, where you had such a razor thin margin in the Senate with some very moderate Democrats, Joe Manchin, Kyrsten Sinema. They did accomplish some significant pieces of legislation. She walked through some of the major things there that will help people's lives. Now, part of the reason I don't think it played the hugest role in this midterm is because, as even the Biden administration will admit, it takes a while to actually execute things. You pass the bill, you make it law, but then it takes a second to be implemented. where people feel the effects. And so I think the 2024 election will be more affected by some of these political wins and these policy wins, where people start feeling the effects of the things that were done. But I love what Elizabeth Warren did there, just from a political standpoint of anytime the midterms come up, that kind of gives you an opportunity to list all of the political wins, because one of the things I think the Democratic Party does a really bad job of is properly tout, especially Joe Biden, the very real improvements to our country that will be made by the policies he led on. Here's Nancy Pelosi in the aftermath of the midterms saying that she is on board with Biden running for re-election.
Main event of it all is the presidential. As important as our races are, if we were in Las Vegas, we're the lounge act. There, the presidential is the main event, and this will be a very important election, very dispositive of the direction our country will go in.
So do you think President Biden should run again?
Yes, I do. I mean, President Biden has been a great president for our country. He has accomplished so much. 10 million jobs, over 10 million jobs under his leadership, working with the private.
Okay, we'll cut her off quickly there, but she does go on. And the reason why I include this is because it is fascinating to see Elizabeth Warren first saying Joe Biden has led on a lot of these victories and we should give him credit for the midterm performance. But then Nancy Pelosi also responding to Joe Biden being a good leader. But what's funny is there's a lot of people in the Democratic Party right now, and I would put myself in this bucket, that look at Joe Biden and look at the successes of the Democratic Party. And while I will always say, because I'm a pretty progressive person and have huge ambitions as far as policy goes, we could do more, we should do more. There's so many more things that need to get done. But within the political context that we were in, I think it's pretty significant what was done. And so then you go, great job, Joe Biden, generally compared to a lot of other presidents, you've been really good, but don't run for re-election, which is a strange thing to have happening. But Nancy Pelosi's not on that. She's saying, heck, stinking yeah, send Joe Biden. Now, over, I think his birthday either just happened or is about to happen. He'll be over 80 running for re-election if he chooses to. Very fascinating stuff. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to be a part of what makes this show possible, plus get access to the full video version of the show hours before any of the clips are uploaded to YouTube, plus get access to an extra full show every Saturday that only members can see, you can do so by going to patreon.com/Luke Beasley. That's patreon.com/Luke Beasley, and there is a link in the description.